Welcome back to Concoding, your weekly guide navigating the often choppy waters of cybersecurity news. We've sifted through a ton of material again this week for you.
We certainly have. And the landscape, well, it keeps getting more complex, doesn't it? We're seeing everything from really aggressive personal extortion attempts all the way to physical scams using mobile tech and, of course, those big enterprise zero days.
Right. Our aim today is really to connect the dots for you, give you the context you need on what actually matters for your security. We're going to jump straight in with a story that honestly feels quite chilling because it shows how personal these attacks can get. It involves a BBC cyber correspondent.
Yeah, this is a really telling case. It centers on Joe Tidy, one of their journalists, who got contacted on Signal. The person called themselves Sin and claimed they were linked to the Medusa ransomware group.
Medusa. They're known for being pretty aggressive, financially motivated attackers, right?
Exactly, high-pressure tactics. And Sin's opening pitch was, well, incredibly blunt. It was a straight-up criminal proposition.
What was the offer?
Basically, give us access to the BBC's internal systems, and you'll get 25% of the ransom we collect. And they even specified the ransom would be calculated based on a percentage of the BBC's total revenue.
Wow. That's bold. Trying to turn an insider just like that. Did they try to, prove they were legitimate criminals, if that makes sense?
It does, yeah. Sin tried to build credibility right away. They mentioned alleged previous successes, specifically pointing to a UK healthcare company and some US emergency services provider where they claimed similar insider help led to successful breaches.
So a classic insider recruitment attempt. But it didn't stop there, did it? What happened when the journalist, understandably, didn't just jump at the offer?
Well, he started stalling, trying to gather more information, naturally, and that's when things escalated. Sin shifted tactics pretty dramatically.
From bribery, too.
From bribery and, taunts about living on a beach soon, to a direct technical assault. We're talking about MFA bombing.
MFA bombing. Multi-factor authentication bombing. How does that even work? Are they trying to break the MFA or just annoy the person into slipping up?
It's the second one. It's pure coercion through annoyance and overload. The attacker likely already has the password, maybe from phishing, maybe a credential leak somewhere else.
Okay.
Then they just hammer the login process. Every attempt triggers an MFA notification on the target's phone. Push notification after push notification, pop-up after pop-up.
Just flooding their phone.
Exactly. The goal is to frustrate you, confuse you. Maybe you're half asleep. Maybe you just want the buzzing to stop, and you accidentally hit approve.
So they're weaponizing the very thing designed to protect the account. That's unsettling. What did the BBC do?
Their immediate response tells you how serious it was.
Right.
They completely disconnected the journalist from all internal systems. Instantly. It just shows criminals are now blending these financial lures with really aggressive, direct technical pressure.
It's a nasty combination. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. You mentioned physical threats earlier. That sounds different.
Yeah, moving beyond purely digital attacks, we need to talk about something called an SMS blaster. It's a physical device being used in scams.
Physical device. So not remote hacking, but someone actually driving around with, what, equipment?
Pretty much. These things can be small enough to fit in a backpack or maybe the trunk of a car. And sometimes they use hired drivers who might not even know what they're transporting.
Okay, kind of like something from a spy film. But what does the device do?
It's essentially a portable rogue cell tower, what's called a cell site simulator, or CSS. It tricks phones nearby, potentially up to a kilometer away, into connecting to it instead of a legitimate tower.
How does it trick them?
The key vulnerability is speed and legacy protocols. Once your phone connects, the device forces it almost instantly, we're talking under 10 seconds, to downgrade its connection. From secure 4G or 5G down to the old, much less secure 2G network.
Why would a modern phone even agree to downgrade to 2G? Isn't that a huge security hole right there in the standards?
It really is. It's a legacy feature kept for, compatibility with older devices and networks in some parts of the world. But it's exploitable. Once the phone is on 2G, the blaster can basically bypass a lot of modern security.
And then what? Blast it with spam.
Exactly. Smishing SMS phishing texts. And the scale is alarming. These devices can apparently pump out up to 100,000 phishing texts an hour. Think about texts pretending to be about road tolls, package deliveries, bank alerts.
And because the phone thinks it's connected to a real, albeit old tower, the mobile network operators can't easily block these messages.
That's the problem. They originate from the fake tower directly to the phone over 2G. There was actually a case in the UK recently. A guy got jailed for driving one of these things around London. So definitely happening.
Okay, this is genuinely concerning. The threat isn't just online. It could be driving past your house. What can people listening actually do about this? Is there any defense?
Yes, thankfully there are steps you can take. If you're an Android user and you have Android 16 or newer, there's a specific setting. Go into your SIM settings and you should find an option like Allow 2G. Toggle that off.
Disable 2G capability entirely.
Right. Plus, newer Android versions are getting better at detecting and flagging these fake cell towers, which is a good step.
What about iPhone users?
For iPhone, if you're on iOS 16 or later, there's lockdown mode. That does disable 2G connections.
Ooh.
However, lockdown mode also limits a lot of other phone features quite significantly, so it's probably not practical for most people day to day.
So maybe not a daily driver solution.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So regardless of your phone, the general smishing advice is more important than ever. Be super suspicious of unexpected texts asking for action tolls, deliveries needing payment, refunds, bank warnings. Look closely for bad grammar or weird URLs. And never click links in texts, especially for banking. Always go to the official website or app manually.
Solid advice. Okay, let's scale up again. From individual phones to massive enterprise systems, there was some emergency patching news from Oracle recently.
Oh yeah, a big one. Oracle had to rush out a patch for a critical zero-day vulnerability in their e-business suite. We're talking CVE 2025-61882.
And the severity rating.
It was scored a 9.8 out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
which is, yeah, about as bad as it gets. It's basically a 5-alarm fire for any organization running those versions of EBS.
A 9.8 usually means unauthenticated remote code execution, right?
Exactly, RCE. The attacker just needs network access, typically HTTP to the vulnerable system. No username, no password required. They can just exploit the flaw and potentially take complete control of critical business systems.
That's terrifying. How were attackers actually using this?
The initial attacks reported were pretty aggressive. They involved sending emails to executives, apparently from hundreds of already compromised email accounts, claiming they'd stolen sensitive data using this flaw.
And trying to extort them based on that claim.
Precisely. And the intelligence suggests potential links between this activity and some well-known financially motivated ransomware operators. Groups like FI11 and Cl0p who are notorious for exploiting initial access vulnerabilities for large-scale extortion.
This really highlights the constant pressure on big organizations. And speaking of big targets, there's also movement in the cloud space, right? With threat actors focusing on AWS.
Yes, absolutely. The group known as Crimson Collective, they were behind that significant Red Hat breach earlier, remember? They stole something like 570 gigabytes of data, including sensitive customer records with infrastructure details.
Right, I remember that.
Well, now they seem to be actively targeting Amazon Web Services, AWS environments.
How are they getting in? Is it complex exploits again?
It's often simpler, worryingly so. They're reportedly using an open-source tool called Trufflehog. Its job is basically to scan code repositories, like GitHub, looking for accidentally exposed secrets. Things like API keys, credentials, private keys that developers might have mistakenly left in their code.
Oh, wow. So finding lost keys, essentially.
Exactly. And once they find a valid AWS credential, even a low-privilege one, they move fast. They use AWS's own tools, the APIs, to try and create new administrative users, generate new access keys for themselves, escalate their privileges, basically setting up shop inside the victim's cloud environment.
Preparing for data theft and then extortion, presumably.
That's the pattern. It's a quick path from one exposed key to potentially major compromise.
So what's the key takeaway for organizations using AWS? What's the defense?
The advice, including from AWS itself, is pretty clear. Least privilege is crucial. Use short-term credentials wherever possible, not long-lived keys. And implement really strict IAM policies, identity and access management. Basically, ensure that even if a key does get exposed, it can do very little damage because its permissions are tightly limited.
Limit the blast radius from the start. Makes sense. This whole issue of exposed credentials and phishing brings us neatly to, well, the human element, doesn't it?
It really does. Because even with technical defenses, phishing remains incredibly effective. Recent survey data is quite stark. Almost half of people surveyed, 44%, admitted they interacted with a phishing message in the last year.
Interacted, meaning clicked a link, opened an attachment.
Exactly. Engaged with it in some way. And maybe more worrying, most people now say they're often unsure if a message they receive is legitimate or fake. The attackers are getting that good.
Is there any particular group that's more vulnerable?
Surprisingly, yeah. The data pointed to Gen Z being the most likely group to interact with phishing scams something like 62% of them, which is counterintuitive, right? You'd think the most digitally native generation would be the savviest.
That is surprising. Why do you think that is? Maybe overconfidence or just different communication patterns?
Could be a mix of things,
Yeah.
but it definitely points to a broader issue. The gap in security fundamentals. We know passwords are weak, yet they're still the main way most people log into most things.
And MFA isn't everywhere yet.
Far from it. Statistics show less than half of companies have multi-factor authentication rolled out across all their applications. And maybe the most damning stat, 40% of employees report getting zero cybersecurity training from their employer. Zero.
Wow. So weak passwords, patchy MFA, no training. It's no wonder phishing works so well.
It's a perfect storm, really.
Yeah.
And this constant stream of breaches means your personal data, your credentials, are very likely already out there on the dark web.
Which leads us to think about reactive measures, right? If breaches are inevitable, what can people do after the fact? This is where things like identity theft protection services come in, I suppose.
Exactly. They're becoming almost a necessary layer because proactive defense, while vital, isn't foolproof. These services primarily offer monitoring. They scan the dark web for your info, watch your credit reports across the main bureaus like Experian, Equifax, TransUnion.
And alert you if something suspicious pops up.
Right. Plus, a key feature is the insurance component. Many offer significant coverage, often up to $1 million per adult, to help cover the costs of restoring your identity if it is stolen, legal fees, lost wages, all that hassle.
Some also bundle other security tools, don't they? Like VPNs or password managers?
Yeah, providers like Aura often bundle things like a VPN, antivirus, password manager. Others, like Incogni, focus specifically on removing your personal data from data broker websites, which can reduce your attack surface. They fill a specific gap in the security puzzle.
Okay. Shifting from personal data protection to large-scale policy. There's a really significant debate happening in the EU right now about privacy and encryption, isn't there?
Yes, a major one. It revolves around a proposed law called the Child Sexual Abuse Regulation, or CSR. It's been widely nicknamed chat control.
Chat control. Doesn't sound very privacy-friendly. What's the core issue?
The most controversial part is the proposal for mandatory scanning of private digital communications. We're talking potentially all your private chats, scanning for specific content like illicit URLs, images, videos.
Okay. But the controversial part is how they want to scan.
Exactly. The proposal requires this scanning to happen before the message is encrypted. It's called client-side scanning. So the scan happens on your device before your secure messaging app like Signal or WhatsApp actually encrypts it and sends it.
So scanning plain text on the user's phone before end-to-end encryption even kicks in.
Precisely. And this has, understandably, caused a massive outcry from privacy advocates and, significantly, from over 40 European tech companies focused on privacy. Think Proton, NordVPN, Tuta, Element.
What's their main argument against it?
They're unified on this. They argue it fundamentally breaks or weakens encryption. They see it as completely contradictory.
Yeah.
The EU is pushing for better cybersecurity with things like the Cyber Resilience Act, but then proposing a law that essentially mandates vulnerabilities in secure communication.
Creating a backdoor by design, effectively.
That's the fear. They argue it jeopardizes not just personal privacy, but potentially the security of critical infrastructure, financial transactions, everything that relies on strong encryption. They've warned it endangers Europe's digital sovereignty.
Why should someone listening outside the EU care about this specific proposal?
Because encryption is global. If a major economic bloc mandates technology that weakens encryption, the fear is that authoritarian regimes or malicious actors worldwide could exploit that precedent, or even the technology itself. It sets a dangerous standard.
Even if, say, government communications are exempted, as one proposal suggested.
Technologists argue that building a system capable of scanning everyone else's encrypted comms still creates inherent risks and potential for abuse or error, regardless of exemptions. It's a fundamental challenge to the principle of secure private communication. There's a key meeting on this scheduled for October 14th, so it's coming to a head soon.
Definitely one to watch. Okay, so wrapping things up for today, we've covered a lot of ground. From that very personal MFA bombing attack on a journalist.
The physical SMS blasters driving around cities, those critical Oracle 0 days hitting businesses, the ongoing struggle with cloud credential theft.
The sheer effectiveness of phishing, the gaps in basic defenses like MFA and training, and now this huge policy battle over encryption in the EU.
It really underscores that security today isn't just about technology. It's vigilance at the individual level, strong practices at the organizational level, and now, increasingly, these major policy decisions that impact everyone.
It feels like the threats are coming from all angles: digital, physical, social, and even legislative.
That's a good way to put it. Staying secure requires awareness across that whole spectrum.
So maybe the thought to leave everyone with today is this. We see hackers bombarding a journalist's phone trying to break security, and at the same time, governments potentially mandating scanning before encryption secures our messages. How do you, as an individual, balance the need for truly private, secure communication against these growing pressures for visibility and access, whether from criminals or authorities?
Yeah, where do you draw that line? Especially when the tools for security and privacy themselves are becoming politicized. It's a tough question, and there are no easy answers.
Definitely something to think about. Well, thanks for joining us for this look at the latest cybersecurity landscape. We hope you found it useful.
We'll be back next week with more insights.
Until then, stay safe, and thanks for tuning in to Calm Coding.